the last devlog, we have created till the first level of our game, and last time I just forgot about the touch controls even though I'm making a game for Android. And now it was time for me to draw some UI buttons. So I just went to my Adobe Illustrator and there were some UI buttons that I made earlier when I made the game long time ago. I put them together with the level to see how they will fit with the composition of my scene, and I will admit that black buttons were not as good as I thought. I looked online for some UI pictures for reference and found out that there is a simple trick to make simple UI. The trick is make your UI white and lower the opacity. So that's what I did. I just changed the color from black to white and tada, UI buttons are ready. I checked them with the composition and they looked good. Here is the before and here's the after. But now it's time to implement the touch functionality into the game. As of now, I made it in a pretty simple way. I used event trigger to call the state change function when the button is pressed. Buttons are working fine, so I just left them until I test them in my mobile. Although the button was implemented, but still I have a lot more work to do. So I have started by implementing the second level of my game. I just quickly exported the scene art, made the character state changes, made buttons for the level, changed the color of the leaves particle, made the color changes in the game over UI for this level, made new difficulty settings with the help of scriptable game objects, tweaked the difficulty, matched it with the level, and voila, the level was done. But level 1 got some stars and moons. Because of it, the sky of level 1 looked filled, but this level was a bit empty from the upper area. So I made a falling snow particle effect, and now this scene also looks really good. Now I told myself that before adding new level, it would be better if I would implement the sound effects in the game. Now I started to work on the sound manager script. I knew how to create a basic sound manager, but I want to write a class that could be easily used in the future for my other projects. So I went on YouTube and understand how CodeMonkey made his sound manager script, and I took inspiration from it. I have my sound manager now. I used some audio clips from my old project for enemy die effect, and to add variation to the sound, I add a code that would randomly select between 3 audio clips and play one of them when the player dies. Now, implementing the audio was easy, so I left to add the remaining sound and music for future Sakib. While implementing the sound manager, I noticed some code smell. This is the problem of referencing level data to my scripts. I knew that the problem of referencing is a common issue. Because of it earlier, I used scriptable game objects to design my architecture and to minimize the issue, but still at multiple places I need to reference my level data scriptable game object. To solve this issue, I watched a very old talk by CodeMonkey about this topic and I got the solution. Let me explain it to you quickly. I made a game asset class and made it using singleton pattern, which means that a class can only have a single instance in the project. Then I checked that if the game asset instance is not in the scene, then instantiate one, and if there is one, then return it. Now anything that I made public in this class could be used or accessed from anywhere in my any other script. The problem of referencing is solved. Now I only have to reference it in this object prefab. Now it's time to add level 3. Here we go again. I quickly exported the scene art, made the character state changes, made buttons for the level, changed the color of the leaves particle, made the color change the game over UI, made new difficulty settings with the help of scriptable game objects, tweaked the difficulty, matched it with the level, and voila, the level was done. Now, I really wanted to test how my game will feel when I play it in my mobile. So I just made the first build of my game and I have encountered multiple issues with the game. The background of my game was small for an 18:9 ratio device. Thus, I can see the outside of the play area and my touch controls are very bad. If while pressing a button, I press another button and leave it, then the player goes into the default state. Another issue is that my enemy movement is very jaggy. Jaggy movement feels terrible. It ruins your experience. Although I knew that the jaggy movement will be solved by just simply setting the frame rate to 60, because in Unity the default frame rates is set to 30 frames per second. I solved the ratio problem by scaling the background and land. Now I need to think, how can I solve the issue of touch controls? I need the information about touch. Is the player still touching the screen? Did he left touching the screen? So I thought it would be better if I use Unity's new input system for controls of the game. I read the documentation about Unity's new input system, and believe me, it looks difficult, but actually it's easy. Not only it's easy, but super helpful too. Now I got all the data that I need about the touch. I checked a condition that as long as my player is holding any one out of two buttons, then don't go into the default state, and my touch problem is fixed. I have some ideas for the remaining two levels. This was all the work that I could do on this week, as I was out of town for 3 days. The next devlog would be the last for this game, hopefully, as I will complete the game by next Sunday. So see you in the next devlog, bro.